The public imagination is fixated on the wrong vector. It anticipates the blinding flash of a hypersonic missile. This is a strategic misdirection. The mathematical certainty, confirmed by war games from RUSI and CSIS, is that the first kinetic event will be silent. The primary targets are not cities, they are the two circulatory systems of American power. The 1.4 million kilometers of undersea cables carrying 99% of all intercontinental data, and the constellation of satellites forming its orbital nervous system. An adversary does not need to flatten New York. They only need to cut the data feeds. This asymmetric protocol creates the blind Leviathan, a state with unparalleled kinetic force but zero situational awareness. It severs the connection between the Federal Reserve and the global SWIFT system, between the Pentagon and its carrier groups. It is an act of systemic deplatforming. When the Leviathan is blinded and facing a simultaneous, non-negotiable economic attack, such as the digital currency linkage proposed by the Reserve Bank of India for BRICS nations, its launch on warning posture defaults to its final leverage. It triggers a solvency crisis for its own power, where the kinetic cost of restoring vision becomes the only remaining option. The protocol of power dictates that states act not to project strength, but to mask weakness. The turn toward kinetic conflict is not a display of renewed Russian power. It is the primary symptom of a terminal solvency crisis. According to analysis from CSIS, prolonged conventional warfare creates a severe domestic liability, draining political and economic capital at an unsustainable rate. This is not a war for territory, it is a war for solvency. When a nation's balance sheet is in systemic freefall and its conventional assets are rapidly depreciating, leadership faces a mathematical certainty. Abandon the symmetric game or face liquidation. The state's power model becomes insolvent. Weakness forces a pivot to asymmetry. If you cannot challenge an adversary's carrier groups, you must neutralize the financial architecture that funds them. The proposal from the Reserve Bank of India to link digital currencies of the BRICS nations is not a footnote, it is a calculated asymmetric vector. This is a blueprint to engineer a parallel liquidity system, decoupling from the primary leverage of U.S. power. The motive is survival. By attacking the foundation of American global reach, adversaries are not trying to win the old game. They are triggering a systemic failure to force a new one, escalating the kinetic cost for all players. The protocol of power is shifting from financial leverage to kinetic cost. The math is irrefutable. According to the Royal United Services Institute, RUSI, the dominant battlefield equation is no longer about technological superiority. It is about asymmetric economic warfare. A state-of-the-art main battle tank represents a $5 million liability. Its adversary is not a rival tank. It is a $500 first-person view drone. This is not a balanced exchange. It is an economic annihilation. For the cost of one legacy asset, an adversary can deploy 10,000 points of failure. This is the blueprint for a systemic solvency crisis within the military-industrial complex. This principle is known as the democratization of violence. Lethality has been decoupled from industrial capacity and national GDP. It grants non-state actors and rival powers extreme kinetic leverage at a near-zero marginal cost. When legacy platforms become liabilities and financial sanctions are neutralized, the mathematical certainty is an escalation to a launch-on-warning posture, not to deter, but to preempt total asset liquidation. The media presents global instability as a series of disconnected crises. This is a deliberate misreading. These are not fires to be put out. They are controlled burns. CSIS reports identify these regions as proxy laboratories, staging grounds where the kinetic cost of maintaining the current power protocol is calculated and rehearsed. They are symptoms, not the disease. The accelerant for this shift is the asymmetric attack on U.S. financial leverage. While legacy systems were focused on tertiary threats, like tariffs over Greenland, source number 1, the true vector was being deployed elsewhere. The Reserve Bank of India's proposal to link BRICS digital currencies, source number 4, is the blueprint. This is not economic competition. It is a protocol designed to create a parallel settlement system, engineered to neutralize the dollar's global liquidity. The mathematical certainty of this financial attack necessitates a pivot to the final leverage, kinetic force. But direct confrontation is inefficient. Instead, these gray zones are activated. RUSI analysis suggests that events from internal industrial stress, like the factory blast in China, source number 3, to civic friction in allied nations, are now viewed as data points. They are inputs for a new launch-on-warning doctrine, testing the thresholds for escalation in a world where dollar solvency is no longer the primary weapon. The protocol of last resort is not a debate, it is an algorithm. Strategic planners at CSIS refer to it as launch-on-warning. This doctrine dictates that retaliation is initiated upon confirmation of an inbound enemy strike, not upon its impact. The logic is a form of solvency. Waiting for kinetic impact guarantees the liquidation of your own retaliatory assets. You would have zero capacity to respond. The system is therefore engineered to preemptively guarantee a counterstrike. However, this creates a systemic vulnerability. The adversary's most potent vector is not a missile, it is a line of code. An asymmetric cyber attack can blind the early warning radar and satellite network, creating what military analysts call the fog of digital war. The screen goes black. The data stream ceases. In that moment, the commander is forced into a zero-sum calculation. Is this a system malfunction, or is the data blackout a precursor to a decapitation strike? The protocol of power leaves no room for ambiguity. Faced with the mathematical certainty of annihilation if he is wrong, the commander is forced to assume the worst-case scenario. He must launch out of fear, based on the absence of information. This is the kinetic cost of losing the information war. The protocol of power is non-negotiable. As the Reserve Bank of India officially proposes the architecture for a BRICS digital currency linkage, the solvency of U.S. financial leverage approaches a terminal mathematical horizon. This is not a trade dispute to be solved with tariffs. It is an asymmetric attack on the base layer of American global control. A hegemon backed into a corner has only one remaining vector of influence, demonstrating the kinetic cost of decoupling. The response must be a signal, not a war. It must be severe, disruptive, and critically, attribution impossible. CSIS documents identify the I-4 corridor in Central Florida as a systemic vulnerability, a nexus of critical ports, logistics hubs, and data centers. The forecast, therefore, is not a market crash. It is a calibration shot. Within the next 12 months, anticipate a catastrophic, multi-day blackout targeting a major U.S. logistics or data hub. The official narrative will cite an unprecedented systems failure, perhaps triggered by a freak weather event, such as a severe freeze warning in a region unequipped for it. The event will be plausibly deniable. The intended audience is not the American public. It is the financial strategists in Moscow and Beijing. The signal will be clear. Proceed with de-dollarization, and the kinetic cost will escalate from infrastructure to industrial assets. The math is irrefutable. A launch-on-warning protocol is now active.